weeks since the second Iranian attack on Israel, when they hit Israel with almost 200 ballistic missiles. And still nothing has been done. Nothing is coming out of Israel yet. We hear about a lot of different things. We hear a lot even from Netanyahu, sort of talking to the people of Iran, talking to the people of Lebanon, trying to convince them that there is a better way. But we haven't seen any action. And something that has happened most recently is that Iran has basically threatened Arab nations, primarily the ones that do have American bases inside of them, basically saying any attack, even any Israeli attack coming from those bases or those nations, will basically be taken as those nations attacking Iran, and Iran respond. Will respond to that sort of aggression. Something that has also come out most recent. So something we knew earlier is when this came out, that basically Biden has said that they don't plan to even provide Israel with bases to basically attack Iran from. And something that has also came out recently is the fact that not only Biden does not support attack on the nuclear fields, but it looks like right now he doesn't even support attack on the oil fields or the oil facilities. So that's what's been happening right now, and we will be talking about this question: has the West given up? There's many ways we can talk about it, but I think I'm just gonna start with some quick comments. So since James has been on the Daily Objective, I'll start with Alex. So, just sort of generally, do you think the West has given up?
I think that the leaders maybe in the West have given up. I don't actually think the people have. I think that it's extremely chilling to really witness in real time the game that the Americans are playing in public. On the one hand, they're giving anti-ballistic missile defense systems to Israel and coming here and making a huge big show out of it. And on the other, they're refusing to sell them. They have an unofficial arms embargo, and one of the munitions is the MOB bombs, the mother of all bombs, the kind of the 60-ton ones that you certainly would need if you were going to attack anything deep into a mountain or deep underground. So that's extremely disheartening to see the sort of double speak that's being uttered. And it really feels like the our war for our survival is really just getting in the way of the American policy of realignment, right? That's existed really since Obama. And I am reminded, of course, of a very interesting quote that Obama said to Bibi in 2014 when they were discussing potentially what they were going to do about ISIS. And Obama said, "Nobody likes nobody likes a gorilla. Nobody likes a Goliath." And Bibi was kind of like, what on earth are you saying? You're the United States of America. If you need to do something, you just go ahead and do it. And it's sort of like instead of being the leader of the freest, most wealthiest nation in the world, kind of pretending to be the leader of some kind of third world country.
James?
I have to agree. You just put your finger right on it. It is our unwillingness to use the forces that we have in defense of civilization that is the problem. It's simply because you're strong, you can't use your strength to fight back. What? Wait. It does not answer the moral question, the moral clarity question, and it is precisely that attitude Mr. Obama, that created the conditions for this multi-front war that Israel is now fighting. It is because of Mr. Obama's change in strategy that was just referred to that caused Iran to be able to collect tens of billions of dollars in oil revenues with trading with China. And it is those billions and billions of dollars that have funded the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, all of these groups, all of these groups. Now, Mr. Obama, I am glad, I can't, no one will accuse me of being a Trump supporter, but the truth is the destruction of ISIS so efficiently in Syria was the best thing that America could do. Mr. Obama, what you're doing, if you were to allow, and he did, to allow ISIS to continue to fester, is the worst thing you can do, not only for American and Israeli interests, but for the people of Syria. For the people of Syria who were, chemical weapons were being used. And you remember Obama saying, oh, well, I'll draw a red line if they use chemical weapons. Well, they use chemical weapons against civilians in their own country. What did he do? Nothing. Nothing. Instead, he wanted an agreement with the mullahs in Iran. And so what do? We loosen up the trade so they get billions of dollars. And what happens a few years later? October 7th. That is what's going to happen with the Obama-Biden policy towards Iran, inevitably and necessarily. Now, as I just indicated, this is a multi-front war. Israel is facing, think of all the different directions in which they have to defend themselves. Just today, 4 civilians and several more, 4 civilians were killed and several more badly injured from a Hezbollah rocket attack in northern Israel. People are dying today in Israel from Hezbollah attacks that are funded by Iran. So do I understand Israel's situation? Because they're sure not getting the moral support from America, who's supposed to be their ally, supposed to be defending civilization, supposed to be keeping international trade going in the Red Sea, supposed to be holding back the forces of darkness and tyranny. What is America doing? Don't hit their nukes. Don't hit their oil fields. Don't take the win. That was what Biden said after the first attack. Now, can you imagine? Someone is sending hundreds of drones and missiles and rockets in your direction and say, oh, it only killed 1 Bedouin child. Sure, some landed and destroyed some things, but look, we only had 1 Bedouin child. So take the win. Or this last attack, which involved more ballistic missiles than the first attack, made craters in Israel. Made craters in Israel just a couple of weeks ago, okay? And we're going to allow them to get a nuclear weapon? We're even considering, why is Biden protecting Iran's nuclear program? The nuclear program of the country that says Israel is the little Satan, America's the great Satan, these are our enemies, we will happily use nukes against the Zionist entity Israel, we'll happily use nukes against the evil Americans. And so what is America doing? Oh, well, we have to protect Iran's nuclear program. Have you ever heard anything more insane in your entire life? It is that kind of moral appeasement, which of course puts us into all this. Now, because it is a multi-front war, I will say that the 2 weeks, I'm not a military expert. I don't know, if it were me, the nuclear facilities in Iran would obviously be the #1 target. Leadership would be the #2 target. Their oil facilities would be the #3 target. All of those missile launching sites that were used in the last 2 attacks on Israel would be valid targets. All of those should be valid targets, it seems to me. But they are fighting a multi-front war. They might have to worry about their resources in the north now, since even today, Israelis are being killed by Hezbollah attacks. I can understand, I'm not going to second guess the military judgment, but I am beginning to get a little impatient. Something big, something decisive, something real and direct against Iran must happen, or Israel is letting down its own people. You cannot continue to allow them to have a nuclear program. You cannot continue to have these attacks continuously. But I do have some tactical sympathy with poor Israel getting no support from America, Americans telling Israel what they can't attack in Iran. Now, I understand, and they're fighting a multi-front war. So maybe they have to take care of the problem with Hezbollah a little better before they can address Iran. Maybe. I'm not a military expert. There might be some reason for that. And surprise maybe is an important factor in the timing as well. But I have to admit, my foot is beginning to tap. I want to see Iran directly and harshly hit. That's the only correct moral response.
So just just going to something Alex said earlier, that there are no that the leaders have given up, but the people not. Well, when it comes to the people, I've always been a bit of a cynic. Although no, I'm an optimist, but I look at what actually is there, and the fact is, if there was, let's talk about just America specifically. If there was this big crowds of people basically wanting an actual resolution, an actual end to the conflict in the Middle East, and sort of end of the Iranian regime, I would I would see some politician also standing by that position, because again, you have to realize politicians are power hungry and politicians want to be elected and want to be popular. So if there was this position, I would imagine to see that. And we'll talk a bit later about sort of what Harris has been saying recently. But sort of, when we talk about sort of the better alternative for Israel, it's automatically Trump, even by default. Even if he did absolutely nothing, he would, of course, be better on this issue. But again, if there was this sort of drive to do something about Iran, I would expect someone like Trump to stand up for it. But he has criticized Biden, and he has criticized Harris for for both their actions and what they're saying. But he also hasn't said anything about direct, either if he would support Israeli strike on Iran or if he would conduct some strike on Iran. Even if you go to what he did, well, he did attack Soleimani. Oh, well, he killed Soleimani. What happened afterwards is there was an attack on an American base. There was I'm not sure if American soldiers died, but American soldiers were attacked, and he responded by doing nothing. So again, while better alternative by default, again, it is a bit problematic. So I want to go into what we've been talking about, Israel sort of still waiting. I want to expand on that a bit more. But do you guys have anything to add, Alex?
Yeah, I do. I really feel as well that there's an enormous amount of blackmail going on, kind of in the highest levels of the American government, at the State Department. So on the 7th of October, 2000, like just last week, this year's, it was reported in several different outlets that the Biden administration was offering significant military compensation as well as diplomatic protection to Israel if it did not attack specific sites in Iran. So that is really just one of the most horrendous things that you really can do to somebody. Somebody's in a fight for their life, and you say to them, "Well, I'll help you, but so long as you do this or do that for me," and kind of threatening, you know, not supporting Israel diplomatically, which I assume they mean at the Security Council. I mean, it's just such subversion. And at the same time as they're doing that, they're also trying to signal, I suppose, for their election. No, but we're supporting Israel. We just gave them this anti-ballistic missile, system, which is, very nice and all that. So give us the 60,000 pound JDAMs that are required for the Iranian, because part of the memorandum of understanding under Obama, when he raised the military coupon discounts from 3 billion to 3.8 billion, one part of the memorandum of understanding was that, yes, we'll give you these specific ordnance if you do not produce them yourself as well. So that then puts you in a position whereby you need them, you need to cash in, you need to give your coupon and get, and get what you need. And they're saying no. And at the same time, 6 years ago, they forced you to shut down your factories that were actually creating these munitions. So it's really putting you in a tremendous amount of bind. And I really do not wish to be in the position that the upper echelons in the IDF are in, because I know that, military people typically, military people who are not just analysts, military people who are actually, giving the orders for the for the actions, they don't like unpredictable results. They don't like to do something whereby you cannot predict how this is going to play out. And that will definitely weigh tremendously hard on them, because who on earth wants to be the person who ordered the strike that failed? And even just, I think, what's the word? Sort of just the effect on what on the morale of the country as well, if that were to happen, at a time when we really need like all of the strength that we can get, because we're not going to get it from the Americans. But what really does give me an enormous amount of hope and inspiration is seeing how we have been able to cut them away, and signaled that, okay, thank you very much for the advice, but we're going to do what we think we should do. We're going to kill Nasrallah, right? We're going to go after this. We're going to go after that, right? Thanks for the advice, but we are the only people who can actually decide what's best for us.
Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking about it and I'm trying to come back to it, but now I cannot think. James, anything to add before we go to Israeli response?
Well, I think it was just nailed there. Any restrictions America puts on, or any conditions for selling advanced defensive technology systems, yes, I'm afraid you're right. It was all about domestic politics. There are Christians and Jews in America who do still strongly support Israel. There are many Americans, I would say most Americans are still supporters of Israel. And so when the Biden administration continually stabs Israel in the back, betrays them, turns their back on them, says, don't defend yourself, undermines them, don't attack those Iranian nuclear sites, don't attack the Iranian oil facilities. What the hell? What the hell? Honestly, it is morally obscene to put any kind of restrictions like that on them. So what do we do? Okay, we'll sell you the latest defensive systems. Oh, that's very nice. So all you can do is block the punch. You can't deliver a punch back with those, ground penetrating munitions that were just mentioned. Those are absolutely essential. That helped get Nasrallah in Beirut. Without those, you can't really effectively fight against these people who build tunnels and put their nuclear facilities deep underground. We need to, Israel should, obviously they're very dependent on, they need to stop thinking of themselves as being so dependent on world opinion. World opinion is against them. Stop trying to appease the United Nations. Stop trying to appease nations who really want you destroyed and really don't care whether you exist or not. And ignore politicians in America who are playing to a political election right now, trying to appease the Christians and Jews in America who support Israel. Okay, we'll sell them the devices that will defend them, but we won't let them attack the nuclear facilities. So we'll draw this moral line, which is utterly obscene. Israel has to be able to take the stand that was just articulated. No, thank you. We'll build our own fighter jets. We'll build our own bunker busting bombs. And, these agreements that you're asking us in exchange are, in effect, blackmail. That's the only word for it. It's blackmail. You yourself can't even develop the weapons you would need to defend yourself properly if you're going to get any assistance from us. That is obscene, Washington. And would there be a difference under Trump? Well, yeah. If it were one issue that I were voting on in the United States, Trump is the no-brainer. Israel versus Iran, it's a no-brainer. Not that Trump would take out the regime in Tehran. No, he'd make a deal with just about any dictator on the planet. And I don't think he would take out the regime in Tehran. But I don't think he would demand the kind of appeasement that the Biden administration is demanding of Israel. That is really obscene. Look, we have to destroy Iran's nuclear facility. Indeed, we have to take out the government of Iran. That is the only way to get to the bottom of all of this. All of this. And yeah, like I say, if it were just one issue, I don't think Trump would solve it, but he would be infinitely better than the Obama, Biden, now I fully expect Harris policy of appeasing Iran, which is really what they're all about. And it's to protect a nuclear program by the most savage nation on the planet. Now, try to wrap your head around the policymakers in Washington, D.C., who are actively protecting the nuclear missile program of the most savage, evil nation on the planet who would not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if they got them.
So you sort of mentioned something, and people are also saying in the chat that I do not agree that opinion is truly against them, meaning opinion there is no that much opinion against Israel. But you have to think about basically the average person, the way they think about politics is very misguided and is very bad. And sort of like what it means to sort of be pro-Israel means very different things when it comes to an average American and what it means to us. When it comes to us, almost no one in America is pro-Israel, because what being pro-Israel means is taking out the Iranian regime at the very least.
How many Israelis would qualify for that?
And also
Israelis are pro-Israel, Israeli on that set. I know there are demonstrations in the streets sometimes of people who are. It's insane to me how suicidal how many.
Yeah, so we'll go. I just want to finish that point, and then we'll go right to the Israel. But I want to mention that when you look at average American, they are pro-Israel in the sense that they don't want to see Israel be gone. They don't want they were probably horrified by October 7. They really dislike Hamas, and they want to see Hamas gone, most likely. They might even want to see Hezbollah gone, and they are definitely not fans of Iran. But they don't want to see more war. They definitely don't want to see America engaging in a war, and generally they don't want basically sort of that idea of escalation of conflict or a regional conflict in the Middle East. And that's pretty much what you're getting from both administrations. They neither will completely abandon Israel. Like we still see, even Democrats will still, provide weapons to Israel, provide protection to Israel. And when Israel gets directly only then, when Israel gets directly attacked, they will defend them. But you also won't see either side do anything about Iran, which is the real problem. And that's, you only have two choices when it comes to Iran. Either you take out their nuclear program or take out the regime, or you let them develop nuclear program and you have another sort of Russia-China situation, but in Middle East. And that's the two choices you have. And what do you think is currently more not appeasing, sort of like by default, what has more popularity? It's the fact that Iran will develop nuclear weapons, even though people would generally say they are against that. The fact is, this is going to happen because you are refusing to look at the reality and look at what the actual choices are. But sort of, you mentioned about, Israel is not being pro-Israeli, which is a pretty funny point. But yeah, so it has been
Americans versus America. And I think Razi had an idea for a great program once, Israelis versus Israel. And I think there's something to that, because appeasing altruism like that. See, but at least Trump didn't say, don't go after the nuclear weapons. Trump said, that sounds crazy to me. And Trump enforced sanctions so that Iran couldn't sell oil to China. And at least he did kill a leading Iranian. I mean, that's a little better than the total appeasement that the Obama and Biden policy has in effect. That it was the Obama and Biden policy that gave us October 7th. And we don't want to say that out loud, because that would be saying that policymakers in the West share some responsibility for what happened on it. Yeah, in my view, blood is dripping off the hands of policymakers in DC from the way they've been appeasing Iran. And yeah, Trump has all manner of problems, and no, he won't solve the problem, but at least he would allow Israel to go after Iran's nuclear program.
I think as well, it's very.
No, go on, Alex.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think as well, it would be very interesting, important as well for Americans even to know that they think that Iran and Hezbollah and all these things, that's over there, that's far away, that's not nowhere near me. And that's simply not true. Hezbollah have a very strong base in Venezuela. And why do they have that? Why would you want to have a forward operating base in Venezuela, right? Right, because you want to be able to threaten the United States. And I think as well, you know, Americans really haven't been, they don't really know even how much these terrorist organizations are affecting them personally, with the narco trafficking, as well as all of the counterfeiting, all of the organized crime. You know, really, there is a very, very long list of things. And just even, I truly do think that the JCPOA, the so-called Iran deal, the nature of it was truly hidden from the American people. The American people thought that this was a deal so that they would never, you know, be able to acquire nuclear weapons. So the truth about the nature of that deal was masked and not communicated properly. And if that's the case, if all you're thinking of, okay, this is just a little disagreement going on in the Middle East, it really doesn't affect me, then yes, you can really be quite apathetic and ignorant. But once you actually realize that no, they have you in their sights, and think about it, groups that would fire 200 ballistic missiles 2,000 miles away, they can get from Venezuela to Miami. Don't worry.
Boy, is that true. Hezbollah has killed people in Buenos Aires. These terrorist organizations are getting a foothold in the Americas. I would remind people, 23 years ago, I lived through 9/11 when over 2,000 American civilians were killed by Islamic terrorists. It can happen here, ladies and gentlemen, and it will happen here. And if they can smuggle in do you think that if Iran could smuggle in a nuclear bomb to London or New York, they wouldn't do it? No, my friends, they're coming after civilization as such. And that is their enemy, civilization as such. Of course, they would nuke, they wouldn't hesitate to nuke Israel out of existence, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. They wouldn't hesitate. You know, we are saying we can't hit mosques and sacred Islamic places. You think they would hesitate for 5 minutes if that could mean killing millions of Jews? They would do it in a heartbeat. They would also do it in New York and London, my friends. Absolutely.
So I definitely want to talk about that in a bit, because I was actually thinking about the situation when Iran actually develops nuclear weapons. But first, let me cover some super chats. So first, we have a super chat from PC. Thank you so much. He says Obama was a useless president. I disagree. He introduced legislation that Republicans are now going to die on the hill to defend, like the ACA. We also have a super chat from PC. Thank you so much. Who says most in the UK support Hamas outside Jewish community. And I think that sort of like support for Hamas is sort of very similar to sort of like the Israel support. Like, they probably don't support Hamas in the actual, like, they look at the October 7th footage and are like, oh yeah, this is good. It's most likely they advocate for ceasefire. They don't think this should happen, and they are avoiding or evading the fact that this is directly helping Hamas. So that's what it is. The most problematic is when there is evasion, because once you evade the fact that you are supporting Hamas, you can sort of see yourself as, I'm just for peace. I just don't want to see people dying, and sort of ignoring the fact what you're actually doing. We also have a super chat from Enric. Thank you so much. He says Spain has asked the EU to abandon Israel. I don't know what specifically that refers to. I might look into that, but it won't surprise me. Spain has been one of the worst countries, at least in the EU, when it comes to the state of Israel, at least from October 7th. But sort of going into the idea of Iran developing nuclear weapons, because James, you said they wouldn't hesitate to attack Israel immediately, and I'm sort of wondering, because we have now dictatorships, we have now evil nations controlling nuclear weapons. Pakistan, Russia, North Korea, even now, China, and we haven't yet seen pretty much any nation use nuclear weapons when it comes to modern history, or use it. Basically, we haven't seen any nuclear attack since more than one nation had nuclear weapons. So I was sort of like playing with the idea, and if Iran does develop nuclear weapons, I think we would see very similar thing. I can't, well, I can say I don't think Iran will do it, because if they do, probably there will be no one to tell me I've been wrong. But
I will.
sort of.
I will take issue with that.
No, no. Just to finishing the point, sort of the way I see it is, rather than them actively using the nuclear weapons to attack, I think we'll see similar situation to North Korea, to Russia. Basically, they now have immunity from being attacked. They will be able to, conduct actions in Iraq, support any militias, any terrorist groups around the Middle East with pretty much no consequence, because you just cannot, once a nation develops nuclear weapons, they pretty much have immunity, and you pretty much can't attack them.
That is what these monsters in the West and these diplomatic forces in Washington, D.C. and Westminster are after, actually, to permanently ensconce the government of Iran in its position by allowing it to get nuclear weapons. Because once they get nuclear weapons, there's nothing, oh, well, geez, you wouldn't want to start a nuclear war. We can never do anything to take out the Iranian regime. No, I think there's a big difference in ideology that will result in a big difference in how it is used. When it was, for example, the Soviets, or today in communist North Korea or China, these people have a secular outlook. This life on earth is all there is. And so you'll notice, yeah, okay, Christian nationalism is what Putin has brought to Russia. But you'll notice Ukraine can invade Russian territory, and Russia is not using those nukes. So that puts the lie to the whole idea that once you get nuclear weapons, the defending country being invaded will necessarily use those nuclear weapons if you invade them. That has been, in effect, refuted in recent months by Ukraine, the way Ukraine is fighting Russia now. Now, do you think that same restraint would exist with the mullahs in Tehran? Looking at the suicide bomber history, looking at the willingness of them to look, when Hamas was elected, what was it, 17 years ago, to control Gaza, did they lift a finger to make the lives of the Palestinian people there a peaceful, prosperous place or any better? No, they do not want to live a happy, peaceful life. If everyone around Israel disarmed, Israel would disarm and there would be peace. If Israel disarmed, everyone around Israel would attack and destroy it, would slaughter 8 million Jews living in the area. That is what would happen if Israel unilaterally disarmed. No, these people are not lovers of life. How do they put it themselves? We love death more than you love life. In other words, their goal is, when you listen to the propaganda, be a martyr in the cause of destroying Israel. Now, if you're teaching your children that it's a cool thing to kill yourself in the greater cause of destroying Israel, that is telling me something very important about the way these people morally think. They are so mystic, they are so anti-life, that I really think that jihadists would not, if they got the nuclear bomb, they would not be like any other country. Even Pakistan is comparatively secular in the way they're approaching foreign policy compared to their neighbor, Iran. Absolutely. I am terrified of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. And if Iran gets it, do you think Hezbollah or the Houthis or Hamas or one of these Hezbollah affiliates in Syria or Iraq might get it? And then what do? They won't even have the restraint that the government in Tehran has. No, I am not so sanguine about, boy, they get the nukes and then nothing will happen. No way. And we can't let them get it, because then the West will all be uniform in believing, well, we can never take out the leadership. The mullahs are sacrosanct. We can't go after them now because they've got nukes. That is what this is all about. Absolutely. And people know it. The policymakers in Washington, D.C. know exactly what you just said, Daniel. And that's the world they're aiming for.
I think as well that
no, go on.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that if they were to get the nuclear weapon, then I think immediately, as we saw, okay, the moment there was such a thing as the JCPOA, you saw an immediate increase in the amount of in the amount of aggression basically from all of the various proxies, whether that is, basically taking over Iraq and taking over Syria, or whether that's whatever, everything that they're doing in Yemen with the Houthis. So I think that if they were to get a nuclear weapon, you would see an immediate increase in the amount of aggression from the various proxies. And especially some of the more reckless ones, right? Like the Houthis, they simply just don't have any strategy. They just don't care what happens to them. And I think as well that it is very frightening because they do believe that if there will be some kind of grand end of days with the Mahdi, and that kind of, they don't necessarily know when that's going to happen, right, for them. So if, for example, the regime was collapsing and everything's falling all the way down, they might say, you know what? If we're going, we're taking other people out with us and just go for it, right? And we'll just bring on the Mahdi and everything will be, hunky dory. So that really would concern me. So I think that also you would be starting a nuclear arms race, basically a nuclear arm race in the most volatile region in the entire world. Think about the Arab Spring. A country, regimes were falling left, right, and center. You have people taking over all of a sudden and springing up that weren't there before. Think about ISIS. I mean, ISIS controlled a huge territory of land. And the Russians, not that I have a great deal of love in my heart for them, but at least they came and said with the Israelis, help me destroy some of these chemical weapon factories, because in a few days they're going to fall into the hands of Syria. So if even Russia recognizes the volatility and the that militias spring up left, right, and center and start running countries. ISIS had a country. You go to Aleppo, they were running things. They had a taxation. They had a judicial system, right? I mean, and that really is also the huge fear, because that regime is very fragile, and who knows when that's going to collapse. And also, the moment you have the added fear of a nuclear attack, the moment somebody sends a drone or a ballistic missile or whatever, it raises the bar, right, significantly. If you don't know what the payload that it is carrying, then all of a sudden you could have a nuclear war, really, between Israel could just say, okay, we're gonna hit them back from one of our bases. Not that I know anything about that in Iraqi Kurdistan or something. I mean, this is a real concern.
Absolutely. If Iran gets the bomb, the Saudis who've been dealing with Yemen and the Houthis, won't they need the bomb? And then oh, and to follow up on that, Hamas uses their own women and children on purpose as shields. Now consider that. They are psychologically and culturally different than, say, the government in China or Russia, and even North Korea. Frankly, there's a philosophical difference going on here. They're holding up their own babies as shields. In effect, they're using schools and hospitals. They're intentionally wanting their own civilians to get killed for propagandistic purposes against Israel. Now, when you are so ruthless as to be using your own children as your own babies as human shields, what would they hesitate from doing, Daniel? Honestly.
Yeah, but again, then we're talking. Yeah, it's like I'm sort of trying to wrap my head, because again, if we live in the age when a country like actually attacks another country with nuclear weapons, it's sort of, yeah, but that time it's almost over. It's at the very least, Israel and Iran would basically be gone if that has happened, because again, Israel wouldn't, not that we know that they have anything, but Israel wouldn't hesitate to retaliate in any way. Then if you just talk about that Israel is not a nation of just one single ethnicity and one nationality. It's not just Israeli Jews. It's people from around the world, not to mention even in Iran, there's people from all around the world. Once you have citizens of other nations dying, yeah, you get into really, really desperate age. And, it is the reason I sort of have to be almost skeptical because, yeah, thinking of that reality is devastating. And, similar things were being told about North Korea, that basically if North Korea develops nuclear arsenal, they won't hesitate to use it against South Korea. Although we haven't seen it yet, North Korea has been testing them, has been developing them better, and has nuclear arsenal ready if something happens, and has been, for example, violating the sort of the I think like the sea border of Japan, for example. So there are these things happening, and again, it's not like I'm trying to sort of like lower that I even let's say Iran does have nuclear weapons and they don't use it to attack Israel. It's still a really bad situation to be in because again, you have a nation with nuclear weapons that is already supporting terrorist groups in the across the Middle East and militia groups in the Middle East, and them getting basically this cop out of basically now they can do it and there will be no response.
It's not so much international war that it really complicates, but a civil war. Can you imagine an attempt to overthrow the government in Pyongyang or overthrow Putin?
I mean, we've seen it with Soviet Union, so it's not that out
Not
of order.
impossible. It's not impossible, but it had reached the point of sort of giving up and the Soviet empire is collapsing around us.
Yeah, it was a huge deal because yeah, you had nuclear weapons pretty much. It wasn't just in Russia. You had them all across the world.
Folks in Ukraine send all those nukes that the Soviets had in Ukraine back to us in Russia. Don't worry about a thing, which is just what happened. And then of course they invade Ukraine. So and look at what we do to Japan. We completely disarm Japan. And now here we are, 80 years on from World War II. We don't allow Japan, a wealthy, technologically advanced country, to have its own nuclear program to fight the programs in North Korea and China. No, that's what America's MO is. We want to tie the hands of our friends and allies so that it's weaker against the bad guys. And that's exactly what it is. We're using altruism and this fear of war. Now, Ayn Rand, in a very important essay, The Roots of War, she indicated, yes, many people have observed that the existence of nuclear weapons makes a world war unthinkable now. And it is true. It is horrific to think of a nuclear exchange. You would think that sane and life-loving people would immediately end the cause of war, which is dictatorships. That article she shows, it is not capitalism or imperialism that causes war. The cause of all modern warfare is dictatorship. It is a state of war between the government and its own people. To allow that government to have nuclear weapons enormously complicates the oppression, the civil disobedience of the people within that country and their ability to take out a tyrannical state. So if you want to end war, what you do is you end aggressive dictatorships like Iran, and you do it before they get nuclear weapons. Otherwise, you're creating a situation. Now, one can hope, Daniel, that you're correct, that even if Iran had a full-on nuclear arsenal, they would hesitate from using it against the forces that they regard as evil.
Yeah, just quickly, I really don't want to make it that, it's okay. Even if they don't use it to attack Israel, it's still an insanely horrible situation to be in because, even the threat, the possibility that they can use it. But again, the fact that you have it allows you to do many things. Like Iran without nuclear weapons is funding the Houthis, is funding Hamas, is funding Hezbollah, is funding militias in Iraq, is funding militias in Syria, is like actively using everything they have to basically threaten Israel. Again, them having it, even not using it directly, even just holding it, is an insane situation to be in. Not to mention, again, nuclear weapons have to be managed. They have to be kept. It's expensive to keep nuclear weapons. That's why you had a nation that has given up on them, because it's like, oh, we don't need them. And it's actually super expensive to actually make sure they are kept properly. That's why it's also, yeah, it's just a terrible, that's why that's why, one, you want as few nations to actually have nuclear weapons. You don't want, that's why, only few nations in NATO have nuclear weapons, because we don't want every single nation to manage and keep nuclear weapons and to have this sort of defense system. That's why only few.
Well, Daniel, let me put it this way. The world, although I don't think they've officially acknowledged it, the world, I think, believes incorrectly that Israel does have the nuclear bomb. Did that stop the mullahs from twice this year sending all those missiles to attack Israel? No, they are not deterred by a nuclear program, are they? They know damn well that Israel and America both have nukes and that Israel and America won't use them. Otherwise, they would not have attacked Israel so aggressively, would they? No, they are the ones being absolutely and utterly reckless in attacking countries, in effect, that have nukes. They're not stopped by it. They don't care about their own population. They don't care. Or they assume that the West, being completely altruistic, would never, ever even think about it and put it on the table. And by the way, whether we would use them or not, that's why we have to put them on the table. We have to be able to say, well, yes, Iran, we do have nukes on our side. And guess what? There's nothing that's off limits if you attack us. And now Iran has directly attacked Israel twice with sophisticated ballistic missiles. And you think Iran would have done that if they didn't have full confidence that Israel and the United States would never use their nukes against them? That's what they're relying on.
Yeah, I mean, there is a conversation about having, does nuclear deterrence even work now when no one actually used them?
Nuclear deterrence didn't apparently deter Iran from, and these Hezbollah affiliates, from attacking American bases in the area, from twice attacking Israel straight from Iran. Wake up, people. Iran, they honestly, if they got the nuclear bomb, I think it would be a radically different situation than we've yet faced with a country that's acquired a nuke. Let me just put it that way. One prospect I do not want the world to face, Israel or America to face right now, would be a nuclear-armed Islamic Republic of Iran, for what should be obvious reasons.
Yeah, as I've said, it's the biggest problem. Oftentimes the biggest problem is not even a bad outcome, is an uncertain outcome. And the fact is, if Iran does acquire nuclear weapons, we have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea if they'll actually use them actively against Israel. We have no idea and that's the biggest problem, is the fact that we don't know what will happen. That's why you avoid these situations at all costs. You don't, that's a similar, even if you had a nuclear power attacking another nuclear power, we don't know what will happen. That's that's why, at least that's sort of the idea of nuclear deterrence, that basically the fact that these two nations have a possibility of using them, that's why we pretty much have never seen a direct conflict between two nuclear powers, because it's a scary situation to be in.
You honestly think that ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, in the day Al-Qaeda, do you think any of them really would, if those terrorist organizations had a nuke, they would hesitate from using them? It's okay, you can't predict human behavior. People have free will. But when someone is using chemical weapons in Syria, when someone is using their own babies as shields on purpose, hospitals and schools on purpose, tell me what rational restraint they're using. Tell me what moral principles of restraint are involved on their side. I see none.
Well, I think it's similar to sort of the Soviet Union. I mean, you had a nation that literally starved millions of their own people, and even they have basically not used nuclear weapons. They have, used them in every strategic way they could. They used them, they put them on Cuba, and they threatened them. Even I think they threatened even putting them in East Berlin.
Communists were officially atheists. perhaps thinking that this is the only life they had, put a little caution in front of their minds about using nukes. These people are religious fanatics, happy to commit suicide to meet their 72 virgins on the other side. Now, when you're up against that, you want that kind of an enemy to have the nukes, Daniel? Okay,
So
again,
what's the difference between them and Pakistanis then?
Oh, I think there is. I think
There's a
Pakistan
big
is
difference.
a big difference, and I think they're much more sensitive internationally. They understand they've got issues with India, which also has a nuclear program, and that largely keeps them contained. But also, they are trying to be a little more diplomatically respectable on the world scene than even Iran is. There's really little question about that. Now, I grant you it's a question of minor degrees, but that could be the degree that makes the difference here.
I think also, Daniel, I think also there's a very good think tank that I think you should follow and everybody else should follow. It's called IDSF, Habit 20 Steam, and it's basically the Israel Defense and Security Forum for a strong national security posture. And, you know, we do have a lot of the documents that have come out of Iran really about their plans. So, you know, I wouldn't be so sure that, you know, this kind of thing around them, we're only going to be getting the bomb because we don't want anybody to attack us. You know, they're pretty explicit in their kind of desires.
Just quickly,
and
I don't mean that.
Yeah.
They want to attack stronger. And even having nukes allows you to be more aggressive, even if you don't directly use nukes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just you know, I really I just want to say as well, more onto the point that I just made before about the Habit 20 Steam. I listened to a really amazing, comforting interview that Brigadier General Amir Avivi gave, and he basically said that we're going all in. We're doing it alone. War with Iran, directly with Iran, is imminent. And there are several things that have to happen on the ground before that, you know, can happen. He said in his interview as well that the head of the Mossad called him last week and said that he's extremely concerned that there's going to be another front in Judea and Samaria and also inside Israel. So I assume that what they want to do is they want to kind of tie up the loose ends, so to speak, that you know, close one theater and then prepare the home front for the next one. But again, I mean, I'm just reading the signals. If I'm reading the signals correctly, then war is imminent, and we're going to go in very strong.
Just so we're clear on that, because I think I've heard about this guy before, and he seemed pretty good. But isn't he retired already, or does he still?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, Habit 20 Steam, the Israel Defense and Security Forum. It's 30,000 reservists who have, you know, they're basically meeting with politicians, recommending policy. And I just want to say, like, you know, if you're a brigadier general, you're always in the know. You know, it's
so,
not.
So like the club of former US presidents, like they don't officially have power, but they still influence a lot of the politics just because the fact that they were the highest. So it's sort of like they might be retired, but their name still carries weight.
Retired generals.
And I enormously.
Yeah.
I respect them really enormously. And I think that they're doing amazing research, amazing work. And, you know, 30,000 reservists is, you know, who are, you know, officers, is no small amount of people. And they also rung the bell 2 years ago saying there's a major problem in the Southern Theater, a major problem. And they handed a 300-page document to Naftali Bennett and also Bibi saying, this is what we're seeing, listen to us. And General Amir Avivi was just saying that they are now going to be they're now implementing some of the recommendations that the Bit 20 team have been making into action. So I recommend anybody to watch them. Hopefully we'll see them in real life. Hopefully we'll see their actual stuff.
Yeah, while I'm glad to hear it, I'm also like, why am I hearing this? Just do it, and don't like. If I know it, Iran knows it. So whenever I like hear that, I'm always like,
at least I can understand that as a reason. We have to get our ducks in a row, as the saying goes. We have to get our, secure this and secure that before if we're going to go all out against Iran, we have to be a little more secure here and here. I totally understand that kind of a reasoning, and at least that explains the 2 weeks, Daniel. And point out, surprise is also an element. So I try to shut up and back off as the military experts are doing their business and try and hold my criticism till afterwards. But I just wish that what you say is going to come true. I'm just begging for it to happen.
He also said something very interesting as well, and if you go to the IDSF, the IDSF English broadcast that they made just a few days ago, they said that Israel now has more ammunition than it had on October 6th. So that's yes, which I was extremely surprised about, and in the future, phenomenal. I couldn't believe it. And Amir Avivi, he's a very respectable guy. So I was extremely also, and I was very relieved after I listened to him speak for 1 hour. I wanted it to continue. I really wish that some of the other defeatists would speak a little bit more like Amir Avivi, but I'm not going to name names. I don't want to put them out there on blast, but you know who you are. Right.
So this went somewhere completely different than we expected.
Sorry.
I might have to no, it's okay. I mean, it was a good conversation. I might have to change the title of the video since we talked much more about Iran specifically than the West. But still a pretty good episode. Let me just check if we have any more super chats. Nope. So thank you everyone so much. And before I bid adieu, I think that's how it's said. Alex, where can people find you? And any last thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Today, well, first of all, Christian, you're saying I'm astonished to hear this from you. I don't know what you were referring to. Okay, so any last thoughts? Yeah, I do recommend everybody to go to my favorite 3-4 think tanks. Kohelet, excellent about just discussing how in Israel reducing tariffs and removing barriers to opening businesses. It's a forum that really wants to discuss laissez-faire capitalism, and they were essentially sanctioned. So anybody who can support them right now morally, I would appreciate it. Not sanctioned, their donors were harassed. Okay, second one, the IDSF, obviously. In addition to that, I really do recommend the Alma Center to understand what's happening from a security perspective in the north. And yeah, so for today, just those 3. The fourth one, I'm sorry, I must have forgotten. Maybe it's Ayn Rand Center.
James, where can people find you?
Here.
And last thoughts?
You're here, of course, the Ayn Rand Center UK. Ladies and gentlemen, you're getting a perspective here you're not going to hear anywhere else. It really is unique. And if you think that the programming on this channel is vital and important, like I do, that people get the kind of moral clarity they need when it comes to fighting evil like Iran, please consider becoming a paid member and subscriber to the Ayn Rand Center, United Kingdom. We are the best voice on this issue in the world. You'll find on YouTube and on the internet. And so I'm here. I'm also on Facebook actively, James Stevens Valiant, where I answer questions every day about philosophy, this issue, history. Hit me up over at Facebook.
And you can find me on my YouTube channel, Damn Dan. And with that, thank you everybody for watching today. Thank you guys for joining me today. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of The Daily Objective and The Reality Show. Bye-bye.
Be safe.